Democracy is dead. I hate to sound like some whiny complainer or crazy clickbait conspiracy theorist, but I don't think I'm delivering any breaking news here. You don't need to be a social scientist or a public intellectual to understand that we are living in a plutocracy in the United States of America. Our country is controlled, dominated, orchestrated, and it's run by economic elites, period. End of story. Sure, we got all kinds of political theater, hate mongering, news hounds on cable TV, trying to capture our attention. But really, it's all just a distraction. The real problem is our nation right now is run by uber wealthy, the intellectual class, and a set of very powerful, well-connected, non-elected officials, not doing the bidding of the people, but the bidding of the wealthy and the powerful. They win, we lose. You know this. I know this. Americans already know this. A recent Pew Research poll from September of this year found that a majority of Americans, regardless of their political party affiliation, 58% actually, believe that their elected officials do not care what ordinary people think. In addition to that, 26% of Americans say they have a favorable view of Congress, and only 36% say they approve of the job of President Biden right now. Another poll conducted by the Center for Public Affairs Research very recently, October 2 of 2023, found that 16% of Americans say that Congress is doing a good job upholding democratic values. See, these polls, they paint an ugly picture of the state of American democracy and the corrupt, divisive, and, well, let's just call it what it is, clown show political games we see in D.C. From the perspective of the voters, they suck, all of them. Americans are increasingly disillusioned with their elected officials, and they feel the government is just, quite honestly, not working for them. That rage, that disgust, that just sickening feeling in the pit of your stomach that you get when you watch the news or you hear politicians speak, you are not alone. You are far, very far from being alone. Sure, you may think that feeling is because of the quote unquote the other party that you really hate or that politician that you just can't stand. But really, the more I think about it, I think it's much deeper than that. I think it's we feel betrayed. And we use the other party as the outlet. We feel used. We feel like pawns because, well, we are pawns. We are tokens that are being manipulated on the board game of politics. And the reason is we don't live in a democracy. We live in a plutocracy. And if you're wondering what the literal definition of the term plutocracy, since I've said it a few times now, it is really simple. It just means the rule by wealth. But it would be tedious just to rant about wealth. There's more than enough of that out there in pretty much all the mediums. Yet, I want to talk about this concept of the plutocracy in some detail because, well, it's getting more and more pervasive. And whether we identify it exactly as the plutocracy, we do feel it and we know it. The plutocracy is getting more and more dangerous because in our world today, all the guardrails are off. And the elite don't even try to hide their plotting, arm twisting, and manipulation anymore. Heck, just go to the World Economic Forum website. Heck, the elite tell you what they want and what they are going to do to get it right blatantly in front of our faces. But I want you to understand who these people are. Who is the plutocracy? Who are these people at the top of the power pyramid in America that are pulling the strings? Well, in real straightforward terms, they are the owners and the managers of very significant income producing assets. They're the highest level of entrepreneurs, of huge corporations, banks, and law firms. The suspects when I identify them. the finance, banking, insurance, the real estate industries, the military industrial complex, the energy and the utility sectors, Silicon Valley and the tech giants. I mean, this is the newest addition to the cabal with rising power like a shooting star. Big food, big pharma, the education industrial complex, the medical industrial complex. These are the players, these are the leaders, all with their own selfish interests, all sadly vying for power, prominence, and the almighty dollar, willing far too often to sacrifice the good of the nation for their own interests. Of course, good, honest people are working in these industries. There's wealthy people that are incredibly generous and help society in so many ways. But you know, it isn't an opinion. It's a fact that the titans of these industries will use, well, about any means possible to push their own agendas individually, and when it's self-serving, join together to push a common agenda. There's over 12,000 registered lobbyists in Washington, D.C., and they represent a wide range of industries and interests. Most lobbying activity is handled, though, by a very small number of firms. Usually about 300 of them are the huge ones. And lobbying spend in the United States, it reached a record high in 2022, $4.1 billion. And by the way, this is just the officially reported legal lobbying, but who knows how much dark money and influence peddling is done behind the scenes. This 4.1 billion, by the way, is the highest amount that's ever recorded, and it's significantly higher than the 3.78 billion in 2021. Now, the dark money, I mean, that's an entirely different ball game. Estimating the exact amount of dark money spent in politics is incredibly challenging, if not impossible, because by its nature, of course, it's incredibly secretive. However, various organizations have attempted to track and estimate this dark money spending, and their findings suggest that it is incredibly significant, and it is a growing problem in American politics, with expenditures well into the billions of dollars. If you want to know who the biggest lobbying group is, by the way, just out of curiosity, because I know I was curious as I was getting ready for this podcast, it's the pharmaceutical and health products industry. Last year, they spent $373 million. I think we can kind of draw... Actually, I'll let you draw your own conclusions on this. All I will say is COVID vaccines, and COVID policies. But hey, you can research that topic to your heart's content if you like. Look at who won the COVID game, and I will guarantee you the one group, the one industry that came out above all others was the pharmaceutical industry. But if you look at the corporate profits of the big players, I mean, just billions and billions, record-setting profits for your biggest pharmaceutical companies. And so they spent millions, but it paid off in the billions. But enough with that. How does this plutocracy rule America indirectly? Because, I mean, that's a big statement to say that the politicians and our elected officials don't rule the country, but rather it's this plutocracy, this uber elite group. I mean, again, I think we have ideas, but unless we cement it into our brains, we're really just zombie walking through this crazy world. And we're yelling at each other that it's the Republicans' fault. It's the Democrats' fault. It's Trump's fault. It's Biden's fault. When in fact, really, if you step back a little bit, as I've been trying to do recently in the things I'm reading and what I'm watching going on, these cartoon characters that we watch on TV that seem to be lacking intelligence, they just simply parrot party lines over and over and over again. Well, if you understand the plutocracy, you can understand that, in fact, the last thing the plutocracy wants is smart, intellectual, critical thinking, compromising, problem-solving politicians that are doing work for the people. The plutocracy isn't paying money for that. They want sheep. They want fools. They want followers to, quote-unquote, run the country. Hell, so many of our politicians are just cardboard cutout placeholders to move a certain agenda. Most are in power not because of their skill, but because they're sheep. They're easily bought and paid for or follow the party lines in perfect lockstep. That's why we get so frustrated with them. That's why even just talking about it makes me frustrated. Again, always got to take a deep breath. It's wrong to pass blanket judgments on every politician in either party, but geez, just look at the track record of the entire enterprise of Washington, D.C. politicians. They serve America. They serve the average American, or pretty much every time are the biggest benefactors the wealthy. Whether a Democrat or Republican is in power, or whether a Republican or Democrat wins, the real winners almost every single time is the plutocracy. Both of these corrupt to the core political parties are to blame for caving to the plutocracy and just doing their will. You know, the corporate companies, they run the country. It's time to admit it. Sure, it's indirectly, but they run the country. I don't want to offend, again, the party faithful who listen to this podcast. I respect everyone's opinion, and I don't have the right to, and I don't have the right answer to very big or complex issues. And every election season, people love one candidate or that one politician from their favorite party, and they say, "Oh, but not my guy or gal. They're for the people." Maybe. With a big slight maybe, in my opinion, but probably if they are in the DC machine and they're in one of the two political parties that have been put in place by the plutocracy, well, they're probably controlled. But how do they do it? How does the plutocracy dominate our dear politicians? Well, it's all actually perfectly legal. It's beautiful. They do it through lobbying. They do it through campaign financing. Business people are inserted into the political class. The political class is inserted into the government bureaucracy through appointments of business people to key government positions and vice versa. Or in general, it's almost like a revolving door of status quo government bureaucrats from government to board of directors or university presidents or ambassadors and back to heads of state or other key government appointments. See, they recycle people back and forth. That's why you see so many of these appointments, the heads of state, the university presidents, the boards of directors. They come from the government, then all of a sudden they're on a board, or they're on a board and all of a sudden they're in the government. They're this recycling of people from government and industry. They're so joined at the hip in such a very complete and thorough fashion with money as the dominant force that is uniting them all together in a very incestuous bond of corruption. But wait, there's more. There's much more, unfortunately. The corporate community also controls the messaging, the ideological messaging, completely. Well, nearly completely, because they also own the mass media and the policy planning networks. And these policy planning networks are, your private foundations with their public relations firms, the intellectual think tanks where policy wonks publish groundbreaking and important blah, blah, blahs about blah, blah, blah to push blah, blah, blah. And don't forget about the so essential policy discussion groups that deep dive into the issues and come forth with the truth for all of us little people. And guess what their decisions ultimately use to solve the problem? Themselves. the Israeli-Palestine issue, it just kind of smells weird to me. So we're giving money to Israel to retaliate and bomb Palestine to the ground. Our military-industrial complex is going to get paid hundreds of billions of dollars probably by the time this is over as we sell weapons to Israel. And I see already the president has announced he's going to give hundreds of millions of dollars to Palestine to rebuild. So we will use our bombs to blow something up. And then in turn, we're going to spend more money to rebuild it back up. And guess who's going to be right on the spot to help rebuild? It's going to be the American companies and the American consultants and all of those firms with deep ties to our politicians and the complex that will do that. You know, but then, of course, our dear military, the military itself, where I served, is 100% subservient to the political class. And the political class is subservient to the plutocracy. So the military-industrial complex and whatever agenda the rest of the plutocracy wants to push through the politicians, it generally happens. So is this some sort of conspiracy theory podcast and me just raging out against the machine? Well, let me digress for 1 second into this idea of conspiracy theory and what this means, and it, because it's a new catchphrase and we see it used in very derogatory terms all the time. And yes, the tinfoil hat thing, that can be very derogatory, but you know, the Republicans and Democrats, when they're caught with their pants down, literally or figuratively, they just say, oh, that's just a conspiracy theory crafted by Fox or CNN. Anytime they're busted or anytime they're called out on anything. Oh, that's just a conspiracy theory. Well, let's look at some features of an actual conspiracy theory. Let's look at this textbook-wise, analytically. What is a conspiracy theory? Well, number one, a conspiracy theory is often very vague about its motives. That's number one. Number two, conspiracy theories, they generally assume that the puppet master behind it is extraordinarily clever and knowledgeable. Number three, a conspiracy theory almost always places power in the hands of one strong leader or a tiny cabal. And then number four, a conspiracy theory usually hints at or downright says complex and illegal plans can be kept secret for very, very long periods of time. I mean, these are core facets of an actual conspiracy theory. Not all, but hey, they're general hallmarks. But let's return now to our dear plutocracy to see if it fits the conspiracy theory. So, first of all, the motives of wealth holders. They're really quite transparent. They're not hidden at all. The plutocracy isn't secret, even a little bit. Heck, they go broad daylight to D.C. Heck, they show they are wielding power in the open all the time. Now, let's not dumb people down to cartoon characters, as all humans are complex creatures, you and I and the super wealthy. But I think it's obvious and not an oversimplification that these uber wealthy want to increase their wealth and not see it diminish. So if there is one thing that unites the plutocracy above all else, it's probably that they want to keep their wealth and power and, well, increase it whenever possible. Any class theory can probably be boiled down to this, and with human nature being what it is, I don't think this is conspiratorial at all that they want to keep their wealth. The second thing, the plutocracy does that is obvious, and it's not done behind closed doors, is using legal mechanisms to wield their power. Super PACs, funding lobbyists, making campaign contributions, having highly popular members from their own class and industry run for political office. All messaging and actions pushed and promoted through the media, which they already own and run. There isn't a whole lot of conspiratorial things about this either. I mean, to say the rich use mechanisms to wield power and influence that you and I don't have isn't some tin hat conspiracy. It happens every day, and you can see it happen right in front of your eyes. Number 3, the third group, a conspiracy theory, it tends to have a, as it goes, has a center, a figure, or some shadowy group. The plutocracy isn't shady at all. Their networks are public knowledge. Elite prep schools and colleges. Country club members. Country club members only golf courses. The ruling elite serve on corporate boards together. They swap memberships back and forth. They participate in various groups together. They attend elite, invitation-only seminars and retreats that you and I could never go. The World Economic Forum event or Davos or wherever. They hammer out policy planning in think tanks. They fund university studies and they work through charitable foundations. There is no supreme leader, no tiny little cabal wearing masks or sacrificing humans in rituals. But make no mistake, when you are in, you are in. As long as your money and your power and your prestige and persona make you, quote unquote, one of them. I mean, what's conspiratorial about that? It's just fact. Number 4, well, there is secrecy, as admittedly the ruling class are in our public view. And what they say to us, you and I, is not what they talk about in their little communities behind closed doors. So in that sense, there's no transparency with the public. These people, they live in gated communities, often with armed security, and they go to exclusive clubs that we will never do. When they have to go to airports, they enter and leave through private entrances, and many of these people are public figures. Well, yeah, many of the billionaires and CEOs, and they speak in public all the time, but, well, their true motives versus what they say to speeches when there's 500 people, in that sense, they're hidden, but not entirely. Check out a couple organizations like Open Secrets. Just Google Open Secrets or whorulesamerica.net. And you can see some of what I'm talking about here. I don't think any of that seems outlandish or crazy. The fact is that the top 1% of the population own 43% of all the financial wealth and receive 20% of the nation's yearly income. They dominate government decision-making. It isn't hard to understand this. Of course, this group morphs and moves all the time. New people get added. Others fall out of the club. But in the end, the plutocracy runs this country. What we are taught in school is a lie. This idea that the United States is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. This is what we're led to believe from elementary school. Was it ever this way? Well, it seems at times in our history we were much closer to the ideal than we are right now. But the idea that that what we were taught is that we vote in people to Congress and the president, and they in turn will do the will of the people. It's a lie. It's a verifiable lie. Many political scientists have studied this, and they found that for the average voter, especially very disenfranchised and lowest economic run Americans, policy decisions have basically zero positive effect. And the average American bears the burden of nearly all political decisions. COVID. Who suffered the worst? Who died the most? Versus who got paid the most? There was no greater boon to business than the COVID lockdowns and the COVID vaccines, and say your big players like Amazon. They shut down all the small businesses, the mom and pop stores, and they let the big boxes stay open. Amazon, Walmart, because they were quote unquote essential. The pharmaceutical industry. Trump paid the pharmaceutical industry to develop a vaccine. Biden paid the pharmaceutical company to distribute that vaccine. The elite, the uber elite, are the winners every time. So while the elite benefit the most, almost always, Thanks again, Democrats and Republicans. Thanks again for that fantastic work over the last 100+ years of being in power. We just see it more and more now at more blatant abuses as the money just seems to flow unending. But yet the average person suffers more and more. But I digress. So, sure, at times the citizenship has risen up and they've kicked out a politician or elected another by surprise. I mean, the Donald Trump election was one of these. Nobody saw that coming. I'm sure the elites did not see that coming, or very few of them did. But if you wanted to see citizens give one big fat middle finger to the entrenched political elites, well, it was Donald Trump. And look at the backlash he got from that. I mean, you can love him, you can hate him, or anything in between. Well, he's maybe the most controversial example of how in an election, the elite's game plan, it doesn't win every time and it can get upended. Now, when it comes to policy, you and I, well, we stand no chance. Doesn't matter if it's Trump or not. Doesn't matter if it's a Democrat. Doesn't matter if it's a Republican. We don't have access to the inner machine, those shaping agenda, those think tanks, those studies, those work groups, those power brokers, those lobbyists. We just can't shape it easily without massive, and I do mean massive, rejection of the duopoly. This machine is large. And for every crumb they throw to the average American, billions are thrown to corporations, the military-industrial complex, or other pork projects everywhere. Finally, another huge advantage that this plutocracy has is maybe the most subtle. They push out their ideological agendas through the media, propaganda campaigns, celebrity power, commercials, etc. We need to be able to sniff this out, these manipulation tactics, because, well, they're brilliant at it. And let's be honest, you and I and this country are too naive, too trusting to the forces of the plutocracy. I think we are waking up, though. I mean, it's slowly, but we're waking up. Everyone needs to understand this game and how it's played. I know I'm waking up to it. I've gotten to the point I don't want to hear one single word out of a Democrat or a Republican about what they think or what they are going to do or how they're going to fix this, that, or the other. I only want to see their actions. No offense, and not to be crass, but I don't give a rat's ass about what I hear or read from a Democrat or a Republican. They are bought and paid for. Their actions will tell me the truth. And you and I and everyone can rip that propaganda machine in half if we just stop being played by our corporate TV media and listening to these politicians promise the world and back. And we watch only their actions and react only to the actions instead of their divisive rhetoric and smoke screens that this machine throws up at us all the time. Our world is not really what we thought it was. It's time we stop pretending. The plutocracy runs our country. We're not a democracy, a republic, or some fancy representative government. We have descended into a full-fledged plutocracy with a tiny percentage of people controlling the decision-making strings, and they have put a bunch of silly cartoon character politicians as the front people to do their bidding. This is why intelligent people rarely stay in DC. And this is why when you hear these politicians talk and they say, my gosh, do they have no common sense? No, they do not, because they're doing the bidding of the plutocracy. So what can we even do? Can we do anything? Well, I'm just one guy with one opinion, but I would say don't vote for a Democrat or a Republican. Both parties equally are responsible for us being where we're at. They've been in power the entire time for over 100 years. Any corruption, any seepage of wealth into the system happened on their watch. The Democrats and Republicans, they are both part of this ugly plutocracy. They get paid for being mouthpieces. They stay in power because they're mouthpieces. It's time to get rid of them. Vote independent, vote libertarian, vote Green Party. Heck, I don't care who you vote for. Just don't keep feeding the two-headed monster. Will this solve the problem? And others outside the machine will be honest power brokers for the people? Of course not, they won't. At least not all of them. But I think the only way to get the attention of the politicians is, well, to theoretically punch them in the mouth and refuse to vote for either party. Because, well, if that happens, they will take notice, and maybe we can stem the tide of corruption in the minimum and chop off at least a little bit at the foot or the knees this plutocracy and their power mongering. But at best, it could usher in a new set of politicians and political beliefs that more reset us towards we the people. But if we don't do this, well, we're just going to get more of the same, guaranteed. The Uniparty, Democrats and Republicans, will in 2024 do the same BS they have been doing for over 100 years if you reelect them. How do I know that for a fact? I have 100 years of statistical data that says that's what's going to happen. Never believe what comes out. Number 2, never believe what comes out their mouths. I already mentioned this. The only thing that matters is verifiable facts. Sort of like science. I mean real science, not like pseudoscience that was pushed on us in multiple occasions and is pushed on us all the time to push agendas. But, like science where, for it to be accurate, it needs to be observed, where we pay no attention to hate mongering, glorious promise making, or degenerate tearing down of others. Just pay attention to what happens, not what a politician says or the media says. The plutocracy plays you for a peasant, for being unthinking, uncritical thinking clowns. So they use the politicians and they use the media to serve up a menu of basic, disgusting garbage, thinking they will control you with their words, while the actions are what the plutocracy using to control and get exactly what they want, while you and I, are busy backbiting and bickering at each other whether we should have a Democrat or a Republican in the White House. Number 3, read, study, think, engage with all sides on all issues. Develop intellectual freedom, intellectual independence, because you simply can't rely on the political class, and surely not the plutocracy. Neither represent you. You may think they should. You should think that maybe ethically they should do the right thing. You may want them to do the right thing, and you may even hope by some miracle that a certain Republican or Democrat is going to come along and voila, the whole system's going to change. It's not going to happen. Beyond that, well, I don't know, at least we can work to be the best version of ourselves and operate in a world with our eyes wide open. Look, you and I, we need an entire mindset shift. These politicians that we hate, they're just puppets for the most part. Others pull the strings. We have the ultra-liberal puppets that get their string pulled. We have the ultra-conservative that get their string pulled. But you and I, we need to look deeper. We need to think deeper and stop falling for the same old garbage they feed us. And because the only one winning every single election, whether it's a Democrat or Republican, is the plutocracy. And it doesn't matter if it's the presidency, the House, the Senate, the plutocracy, they win every single time. We need to use the tools that we have, the vote, to stop electing Democrats and Republicans as our only tool until it is even that's taken away from us, is to vote. But it isn't to vote for a Democrat or a Republican, because no matter which one you choose, they are part of the Uniparty machine that is entrenched and empowered by the plutocracy. They are the same. This is where our focus should be, is busting up this political machine that is run by the plutocracy. I mean, if you think there are other solutions, I would love to hear them. And I'm totally open to other views. But where we are today, it just seems our democracy is unrecoverable as long as a Democrat or Republican holds power. Their 100-plus year track record of slow decay, decline, and corruption, I mean, it's staggering in its consistency, with only a few little minor blips of positivity along the way. But in the end, whether a Democrat or Republican in power, the plutocracy runs this country, and the plutocracy wins all the time. And that needs to end.